Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This video contains the second part of the configuration management lecture. The previous part was being covered in our physical class. Okay. Um, if you still remember, in our previous class, we have covered on vision management and also system building. For the remaining of the video, we'll be covering on change and also release management. As you can see here, these are actually the four main processes covered in configuration management. All right, let's look at change management. Okay, configuration management is about managing versions, right? And change management is one of the process where which is also involve versions, but this is involving where to handle changes where you have been using the system for quite some time, right? So maybe for a customer, when they are using the software, right, after quite some time, they are very good at the software already, and they needs to add new requirements. Okay, maybe along the way when the user are using the system, they found bugs which was not discovered during the development, right? And also because their environment changes. Okay, maybe they have merged with another company, or they have changed their operating systems. Right, due to all these reasons, the software need to be changed, right? And change management is actually used so that to handle the evolution of the software, right? So that all the processes involved with the changes and deciding which of the changes priority need to be done first. All right, and also is related to the cost involved, whether is it too expensive to do it. All right, you need to make decision first before to agree to any changes. So in here, it mentioned that a change management process is actually concerning with analyzing the cost and benefit of proceeding with any changes through the software, right? So there is actually a team that approve whether the changes should be made or not. And at this same time, there should be a mechanism tracking of the component so that we know, okay, the changes that have to be made is done at which component. So we have to ensure that whether the changes have been done or not. Okay, this is a graphical representation on what happened during change management process. Okay, let's say, so these changes can come from several sources. Okay, one is from the customer themselves. So maybe they have mentioned just now, they are very familiar with the system already, and they have more idea of how the system can help their work. So they have recommended a request for change. Okay, so this is basically a repository of request for change. Okay, so they basically have to fill in a form and mentioning what they want to change. Okay, and then so the change is not immediately accepted. Okay, it must go through a decision process. Okay, so this is where this is actually the team that decided whether should they agree with the changes or not. So they will select. So they will be thinking about what are the costs and benefits if they agree to the changes. Okay, so changes can also come from the customer support, right? Because the system have been there in the customer side for quite some time, and then from time to time they will call the customer support to report any bugs. So this is the customer support that is handling any request for changes. All right, so let's say they accept the request for changes is a valid request, so they capture it, they register it, and then so they, rather than proceed it agreeing to it, they agreeing to the request. Again, they will do some cost and analysis, impact analysis, cost and impact analysis, and it will go through the team that is actually making the decision. Let's say they agree to the request changes, and then they will start to modify, right? They modify and then they have to test again. Okay, they don't simply modify without testing, because maybe the changes um, will cause some parts of the software to break down, so they have to test it. Okay, if it's failed, they keep on making sure that the new changes does not disturb the system processes, right? When it's passed, then it will close, meaning that they have settled the request for change. So when there is a request for change, this request need to be recorded. Okay. So who are the requester? Okay, what kind of project, date and time? So what was the request for change? Okay, so in this case, for example, the request, the status of the applicant. Okay, for example, a user of that system, the status should be whether is it rejected, accepted. Okay, should be shown visually, okay, in the list of applicants. Maybe they have a list of applicants, and then you need to show whether that what are the status. Okay, so who analyzed this request? Okay, what date and what components are affected when they agree to these changes? So they will list it down. Okay, and then they assess whether it should be is the request, is it acceptable, is it in terms of cost, will it involve a lots of lots of changes. Okay, so they will set the priority. All right, estimation of effort if they agree to these changes. All right, so that this is the decision made by the team, which is CCB. This is basically the team that decide whether the request is accepted or not. Okay, and then who will implement the changes. And then remember, when they have done the changes, they need to test it. So this is quality assurance. And then the date that they will send it back to the configuration management team, and then any comments. So all these requests of change from start to end is actually recorded. So these are some of the factors considered by the CCB team to decide whether to accept a request of change or not. Okay, first of all, they need to see, okay, what are the consequences that will happen if the changes are not being met. Okay, let's say they just ignore it for quite some time. So does it really affect the system or not? All right. Do they also will see the benefit if they commit to the changes? And they will also look at the number of users affected by the changes. If the affected of changes is the number of users are very small and the benefit is not that high, maybe they will postpone first the request for changes approval to see the cost, and also they will also look at the product release cycle. Maybe if they are the company is almost reaching the deadline to release the system, so maybe the request of change will be postponed first. Okay, compared to if they have longer time before the software are being released, maybe they would consider the changes. Right, in the code that are being developed, on the upper part normally they will capture the 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 date of changes that happened. Okay, they will record it at certain time, who did what was the changes, and so on. Okay, all right. We have been looking at how most of the content of our studies, and then we take a look at how it is being applied in agile method. Remember, agile method is having very small cycle, and every cycle there is a ready functionality. All right, with agile, customer are directly involved with the change management. Okay, so any propose of a change in the requirement, the team will assess it first. So they don't simply do it. They have to assess it first, look at the impact, and then they will have to take a look in terms of the priority. Is it very important to solve it right now, or can it be postponed? Maybe it can be planned in the next increment. Okay, and then changes to improve the software improvement are decided by the programmer. As you have looked just now, there is a team called CCP. Okay, but in agile method, the decision whether to accept the changes or not are done by the programmer. And as you remember, in agile there is a practice called refactoring. So refactoring is basically they always, the programmer will always improve the system even though there is no request done by anybody. Okay, so it is actually part of software continual improvement, right? Is and in agile method it is not seen as something which is extra. It is actually part of the development. So any point of the changes sometimes are done without any intervention by the customer, because the programmer has seen it and they actually upgrade, they try to solve it. Okay, try to improve the system. We have looked at actually the just now we have looked at the third process of configuration management, which is change management. Let's look at the last process that involve or that involve version management, which is called release management. Release management is actually when the system is already ready and is about to be released. Okay, in release management there are um, two factor or two aspect to be considered. Okay, if the software that has been developed is for a mass market software, meaning like for example for Windows, let's say Microsoft products, which is for mass market software. So there are two types of releases that can be done. The first one is a major release. The other one is a minor release. Okay, for major release, that is related to any new versions of the software which involve update in the functionality. For example, for minor releases, sometimes it is actually happen because there are some bugs that have been discovered. Okay, maybe some of the customer problem has been fixed, so there is minor releases. So this is for mass market software. But for a customized software or software product lines, you can imagine software product lines is like the production of your handphone. Okay, there is a different version of software mobile phone software with containing almost the same function but with some addition or remove of some of the functionality. Okay, for this kind of software, there are many releases. Okay, because it is customized for certain customer, uh, and maybe it's for each of the customer. Sometimes they have many releases. Okay, um, so for example, an individual customer may be running several releases at their offices. Okay, because sometimes for different department they are using different version. Maybe for their um, offshore or branches in another country, for example, they are using different releases. Okay, so for customized software, the releases are many, okay, because it's very customized to the customer. So so the slides here is actually showing if they are planning for releases, okay, they need to do some planning, okay. So what are the factors that need to be considered when they are planning for the system release, okay, you are about to release the software. So what factors should be considered in your planning? The first one is actually competition. So if in your market there are actually several companies that are producing similar software like yours, okay, so if your competitor is having new features but you don't, so maybe you need to, and if you do not do it, you might lose your customer because your customer is actually moving to the competitor product. So maybe the planning need to be done more frequent, okay. And also um, you at this point of time, it does not only involve the software development team, it's also involve the marketing department, okay, because the marketing will be doing advertisement and will be targeting certain customer and will be doing some promotion. Sometimes in the marketing department they have um, make an agreement with the customer saying that okay, this product will be released at certain year, at certain month this year. So due to that reason, so the planning need to also consider the marketing department promises to the customer. So that need to also be considered. And also sometimes because of the platform changes, okay, um, change in operating system, change in the hardware. So that also need to be considered in the planning, because by the time customer change to a new platform, the system is not ready, so maybe they move to another product. And also maybe because the system that is running currently is having so much of fault, okay, so much of error, so they need to recover the system qualities in a very short time, okay, else the customer will run it or lose respect, or they lost confidence on the software team, software company. So the release date need to be done on certain period of time. Yeah. So that is also things to be considered during the system release planning. Competition, market requirement, marketing department requirement, change of platform, issues with the quality of the software. Alright. So because we are planning for release, so for the purpose of making the system ready for to be released, uh, it's not only about having the code ready, executable code ready, so it should come together with configuration description, okay, uh, what hardware to be used, what operating system to be used, what library packages need to be included, okay, mm, updated instruction, okay, so that customer maybe for a more technical customer, sometimes they would like to do the installation by themselves, right, script for installation program, okay. So because remember this is release where you want to pass the software already to your customer, so it should be easy to be installed, okay. And sometimes nowadays for a software that you are going to release, you have a website that will capture different versions for each version, what are the description, what are the changes that have been done. So there should be a link to the documentation, right, when you are downloading JDK, for example. So there are so many versions, right? So if you would like to retrieve the older version, there is still there, and the description about it is available. And also you have to have an executable master image of the software, meaning that you have to have an overview of what is actually involved, what is actually included in the release, because you are going to release it already to your customer. All right, so you should be as detailed as possible. Okay, and then you need to able to do release tracking. Okay, um, because in order to allow tracking, you need to document it, all the necessary item that I have explained earlier. Why you need to do this? Because let's say if you have to do it again for a different customer, for example, it can be recreated exactly the same, right? And also, this is very important, especially for customized product. I have mentioned just now, different customer will be using different version, different in that version is using different version of library packages, different hardware running. So, uh, being able to document it, you are able to track it. Okay. Okay, this is I mentioned just now in case that you need to do re, reproduction. Let's say you need to do it again. Okay, you need because you in order to do it again. Okay, you 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 need to document the release. Okay, what software involved, what executable version of code are being used for certain customer. You must also keep the copies, okay, especially from the previous version. All right, not only that you need to have the copy of the recent one, but also the different versions. Okay, so that when you want to reproduce it again, um, uh, the versions are already there. Okay, and then you need to also record, okay, to capture the versions of operating system, okay, different versions of libraries, compilers, and all the tools that you've been using before. Why all these are required? Because you want to recreate, reproduce the release again. Okay, and we mentioned about release planning just now. So when you are planning to release the software, it does not only involve the software team. Uh, what other teams involved are the advertising, the marketing, the advertising, the publicity. Okay, they have done some promotion. Okay, some the marketing is having certain strategy to convince the customer to buy the new release. Okay, so all this need to be integrated, right? And to do with the planning, there is an issue with the timing. If the planning of release are done too quickly, too frequent, maybe like in 1 year you release 3 times, okay, and you maybe every time that this release are being done, some of the hardware need to be upgraded. Okay, if this happens, sometimes the customer does not want to follow your release because you change too fast, okay, and they need to upgrade the hardware and so on. But if you release it too infrequent, okay, the customer feel that the company is not being adaptive to the market or to the customer requirement, so they might move to another product. Okay, so that is some of the issues that need to be think about. And and what is important here during the release is not only involving the technical team but also the advertising, okay, the advertisement that they have done, the marketing strategy that um, have been done in order to capture the market. Okay, so what we have seen so far in configuration management is that it is about controlling the versions of the software. Okay, so controlling the version of the software is not only about managing the version, but version also is being used during the system building, okay, change management, and also when we are releasing the software to the market and to the user. Okay, and all this need to be handled in a proper way, in the controlled way, and in an organized way, so that all the records are being maintained. Okay, because this is a very long process. People come and go, so nobody actually remember what versions are run in for certain customer. So all this need to be recorded. Okay, so with the version management, which is one of the processes in the configuration management. So it is about keeping track of different versions of the software that they have made, the software team has made. And also versions is also need to be dealt with during the system building. Okay? Um, because during the system building itself, uh, due to, for example, bug detected, okay, some of the software code need to be updated, so all this need to be handled properly. Okay. And during the change management, okay, when the system is actually being used, users are more comfortable using the system, they might request for additional new functionality, or maybe during the user are using the system, they found certain bugs, right? So they might request for certain change. So do remember that at this point of time, the system is already being ready and then used by the system. So there is actually a team that decide whether should they agree with the request of change or not. Okay, and then in configuration management, when it is dealing with version, is also involved after uh, before the system are being released to the customer. Okay, so when you want to release to the customer, so we need to know what should be included in the code. Okay, what version of the code is it that you need to include, including the data files, what are the configuration files involved, what documentation for that particular of code is should be ready, right? And all this is actually need to be planned properly, because not only the technical team is involved, the marketing team and also the advertising team will also be involved. So all this need to be integrated. All right. Okay. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.